I'm Matt McClure, and this is Currents.
A vote on health care reform may happen soon. We'll have the Catholic perspective. The wall came tumbling down. The church marks a 20-year anniversary. And he has people talking even 13 years after his death. Writer, speaker, and teacher Henri Nouwen.
I think he reached so many people because people could identify with his own sufferings.
Well, good evening. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Francesca Maxime has the night off. It could come any day now, a vote in Congress on health care reform. Majority Leader Steny Hoyer says Democrats don't have enough votes to pass the bill as it currently stands, and that means an expected vote tomorrow could be pushed back to Sunday or even early next week. Now, one of the major sticking points in the bill is abortion. Lawmakers on both sides of the aisle are withholding their support of the bill unless it includes a specific ban on abortions paid for with federal funds. The U.S. Bishops' Conference has also been vocal in support of such a ban. And to find out more about that, I spoke earlier in the day with Deirdre McQuaid of the Bishops' Secretariat for Pro-Life Activities. All right, Deirdre McQuaid, thank you so much for joining us here today on Currents. We appreciate your time.
Good to be on the show, Matt. Thank you.
Well, just to kind of clear things up, that's kind of what we want to do here on the bishop's issues with and position on the current health care legislation that's under consideration in Congress. What are the issues that the bishops have?
Well, the bishops see health care as a human right, but if final legislation, if the language endangers immigrants, the poor, unborn children, and the conscience rights of health professionals, we'll have no choice but to oppose the bill. And the main thing here that's emerging as the thorniest of those issues is funding for abortion in various shapes and guises. And the reality is, under its current form, the House bill and the Senate bills that are currently moving forward have abortion funding in them. And we're fighting that as hard as we possibly can and saying, look, 68% of Americans don't want abortion covered in their own health insurance. Why would Congress make us pay for it? You don't even, in a way, have to be pro-life to oppose funding other people's abortions. The vast majority of Americans are with us on this. But, of course, the core of the matter is that health care reform is about saving lives, not destroying them. Our money should not be going to destroying life. And we shouldn't be coerced into being involved in abortion in any way, shape, or form, including doctors and nurses who are often pressured, if not to perform abortions, to refer for them. And that is involvement in abortion, and we're fighting that as well.
Right. The latest bill in the House, I was looking a little bit earlier actually on factcheck.org, which acts as kind of a watchdog for these types of bills and kind of tries to dig in and find out exactly what is in the legislation. They've found that the most recent House bill that is under consideration, which may or may not be voted on this weekend as we're learning, and of course that's in flux as the day has carried on here, but the most recent House legislation is stipulating that abortion coverage may not be part of the required minimum coverage package for private insurers, but that the public option, which is a part of that bill, would require the public funding of abortion in the cases of rape, incest, and where the mother's life is in danger, which is the same as Medicaid today. Is that the issue here? I mean, there's obviously, there seems to be a difference between what would be required of public companies and what would be required in the public option.
There is a difference, but abortion funding is still present in both. With the private plans, it's somewhat more indirect, but still real, and still a real concern that the bishops are fighting.
Right. Now, does this boil down just to abortion, or are there other concerns as well? I know you mentioned that there were other concerns that the bishops do have. What are those?
Well, certainly conscience protection. Again, we ran a survey this past September, and we asked the general public, we said that current federal laws protect doctors and nurses from being forced to perform or refer for abortions against their will. Do you favor or oppose keeping such laws in place? And 63% of the American public said they favored it. Of course, the bishops have a moral position that's not based on public opinion, but the public opinion reinforces our position that doctors and nurses must be protected from being forced to participate in abortion. Sterilization is also written into those several of those conscience protection laws. And there could be other ways in which doctors and nurses are pressured to go against their deeply held religious and ethical beliefs, to be involved in harming their patients rather than helping them. So we need robust conscience protection for doctors and nurses, and that language has yet to be hammered out.
Right. Now, a couple of other quick questions here before we have to wrap things up. There have been amendments to this bill in the House, at least proposed. There's some new language proposed by, I believe, Congressman Brad Ellsworth of Indiana that would regard abortion coverage here, and he says that it prohibits the funding of abortion in the bill. There are some pro-life Congress people on both sides of the aisle who say, wait, that's not the case. This language doesn't go far enough, and a lot of them are supporting a bill by Congressman Stupak. Can you tell me about the difference between those and why the Ellsworth amendment might not go far enough?
The Ellsworth Amendment does not go far enough as it was being floated around in its language. My understanding is that all this is in flux, that may be getting stronger right now. By the time this show airs, language may be finalized and being voted on. But they're not yet amendments because the House hasn't allowed even an open rule. They haven't allowed House leadership is pushing for no up or down votes on pro-life amendments. So we either need to oppose that closed rule, if that's how it goes forward, and have the opportunity to actually offer pro-life amendments, such as the Stupak Amendment, or get our pro-life language into that closed rule such that we don't need an up and down vote on the abortion language. So depending on how things go procedurally, just over the next several hours, say 24 hours, this could move forward in different ways. But the reality is, as the bills stand, there are problems with conscience protection and abortion funding. And there may be one or two, maybe three different ways out of this morass, but the problem still exists. And it would be made worse by rushing through the vote without deliberation, without true debate on the floor. Our sense is that House leadership knows that if there were a vote on a pro-life amendment like Congressman Bart Stupak has proposed, that the pro-life amendment would prevail. It would go through. Because it has majority support in the House, and they don't want to see that.
Yeah. Now, that being said, just in a kind of a quick summary, what would have to happen for the bill to be satisfactory to the bishops?
The bill would have to have no funding for abortion, certainly beyond what is currently funded. Unfortunately, we do currently already fund abortions at the federal level for rape, incest, and cases of threat to the life of the mother. We wish that we're not that way and would rather have a stronger law that forbade all federal funding. But under the current political circumstances, we're hoping to at least do serious damage control and not promote abortion beyond what current federal law does.
Okay, well, very good. Deirdre McQuaid, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate you taking a few minutes to talk to us tonight.
You're welcome. God bless you.
Thanks. And Ms. McQuaid is from the U.S. Bishops' Conference Pro-Life Secretariat. I've written more about the health care bill on our blog, including some information on the bishop's position on the issue. Just go over to currentsny.net, click on Riding the Wave. It's in the right-hand part of the screen, and you'll read about it. Stay tuned, much more Currents coming up as well. More on the health care reform bill straight ahead. Activists stepping up their opposition in Washington. We'll have that plus the rest of the day's headlines when we come back. Welcome back to Currents. I'm Matt McClure. Coming up in just a bit, we'll examine the rich life and legacy of Catholic author Henri Nouwen. But first, let's have a look at all the day's headlines. Well, the Bishop of Beaumont, Texas, is praying for victims of a deadly shooting rampage at Fort Hood. Bishop Curtis Guillory called the shootings a tragedy and added that Catholics are praying not only for the victims, but for their families as well. Meantime, a prayer vigil was held at a church in Killeen, Texas. More than 70 members of that congregation are currently deployed overseas. One church member said about 80% of the church congregation works at Fort Hood. A Thursday night, Major Nidal Malik Hassan opened fire at the Army post, killing 12 people and wounding 31 others. Former FBI Assistant Director Thomas Fuentes says Hassan's Muslim faith will not play into the investigation.
It would not be based on his religion. It would be based on the fact that somebody attacking fellow soldiers was motivated to do that, and that the determination of the motivation is the critical factor here. Was he influenced by other people directly or indirectly by websites, or is it a case of a single person having a mental breakdown and causing this kind of violence? So that approach of terrorism would be made in any case just to be absolutely safe.
Hassan is a mental health doctor. He remains in a coma, but authorities say he is expected to survive. A Virginia bishop is pleading for mercy for a man scheduled to be executed there next week. Bishop Paul S. Laverty of Arlington says not even the convicted Beltway sniper should die at the hand of the government. John Allen Muhammad was convicted in the 2002 Washington, D.C. Beltway sniper attacks. He was sentenced to death for killing Dean Harold Myers, one of 10 victims of the 3-week shooting spree. Now, Bishop Laverty is calling for Muhammad's death sentence to be commuted to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Bishop says that in advocating the use of the death penalty, our societies move beyond the legitimate judgment of crimes. He also says we're better than this. Muhammad's accomplice in the sniper attacks, Lee Boyd Malvo, serving a life sentence in Virginia prison. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is getting some in-your-face opposition to the proposed health care bill. The pro-life group Operation Rescue says 12 activists were arrested after they tore up 2 copies of the bill, both inside and outside Pelosi's Capitol Hill office. About 150 people stood in the hallway outside the office chanting, "Kill the bill." Among those arrested, Father Norman Wesleyan, who still faces charges after protesting President Obama's appearance at Notre Dame earlier on in the year. Well, the unemployment rate in the U.S. jumped to a 26-year high in October, rising more than 10%. President Obama says the number is, quote, sobering. The Catholic Charities of Brooklyn and Queens has some programs in place to help in this tough economy. And we've posted some more information about that on our website. Just go to currentsny.net. We'll also speak with someone from Catholic Charities about all this coming up on Monday. The Vatican has issued the first postage stamp to feature an image of Louis Braille, the man who invented the system of reading and writing for the blind. The stamp features an image of Louis Braille and the price of the stamp in Braille. It's valued at 96 cents. 300,000 of the stamps have been issued. We told you yesterday about Pope Benedict's meeting with artists later this month and world leaders next year. Well, today, the Vatican kicked off a 2-day seminar on sports. Personalities from the world of professional and amateur sport are among the attendees. This afternoon, a panel discussion focused on what it means to be a champion. Well, stay tuned. There's much more Currents coming up straight ahead.
Coming up, it's been 20 years since the Berlin Wall fell. The church looks back and ahead.
Welcome back to Currents. Monday marks the 20th anniversary of the toppling of the Berlin Wall. Around the world, the historic day that brought an end to the separation of Eastern and Western Europe is being commemorated. This week, an exhibit featuring the largest display of the wall opened at the museum in Washington. It includes sections of the wall that stand 12 feet high and weigh about 3 tons. An East German guard tower is also part of that display. Well, the event is also being remembered in Eastern Europe. As we hear from H2O News, the church played a large part in the fall of the wall.
Cardinal Peter Erdo, president of the Council of the Bishops' Conferences of Europe, believes that the fall of the Berlin Wall was not the sole work of Eastern European citizens. The Polish Society, with its Solidarność Union and other movements, strongly contributed to this development, along with the charismatic figure of John Paul II. Nevertheless, the majority of the Eastern European population was surprised by the change that took place. They considered it a gift of divine providence. After the initial euphoria, the Eastern European nation's rapprochement to the changes brought about after 1989 is now distinct. This is what Cardinal Erdo, the primate of Hungary, underlined.
Naturally, with the passing of the years, we have also discovered common problems with the Western world, as well as specific problems within the eastern part of the continent, where the societies lack the systems of self-organization that are indispensable for a functioning democracy.
20 years after the fall of the communist regime in Central and Eastern Europe, Cardinal Erdo describes the current situation as he sees it.
Very often with liberalization, above all of the economy, a point is reached where people are exploited. Certain notable sectors of the population are impoverished, and many people are unemployed. In other words, these are classical social problems in which the teachings of the Church's social doctrine regain their original topicality.
The CCEE has recently initiated a new commission, or better said, it has aggregated different pre-existing commissions with the name Caritas in Veritate, which will see to these problems within Europe.
Well, the fall of the Berlin Wall, definitely a day to be remembered. Now, a footnote to this story, there's also a section of the Berlin Wall in the Vatican Gardens. Stay tuned, there's much more currents coming up straight ahead.
Coming up, the wounded healer. We'll hear about the struggles and ministry of a prolific Catholic author.
He showed such love of God and sense of presence of God in his life.
Well, finally tonight, we head out to Douglaston, Queens. Last night, the Brooklyn diocesan newspaper, The Tablet, sponsored a forum on a prolific Catholic writer. Father Henri Nouwen wrote 40 books on the spiritual life. Father Nouwen was born in the Netherlands, moved here to the U.S., where he was a teacher and author, before sharing the last part of his life with handicapped people at a community in Canada. He died in 1996 at the age of 64 from a sudden heart attack. Well, after 13 years after his death, his life and work are still being discussed, as we found out last night.
Henri Nouwen was one of the great Catholic Christian thinkers and writers of the 20th century. He was somebody who is really summed up in the title of his book, The Wounded Healer. He was a person who suffered a great amount, but because he suffered, he worked through his sufferings, and he was able to help a lot of other people. So through his suffering, he became a great healer and really a great priest, primarily a priest, a great priest. We have a traditional outline of these forums. We have a film, then we take a break, and we have a little coffee, a little social, and then we have a speaker. And tonight we were lucky enough to have Robert Ellsberg, who was an editor from Maryknoll Books, and who was a personal friend of Henri Nouwen, and was able to talk about his own personal experiences of Henri and what Henri meant to him personally.
I met Henri Nouwen when I was editor of the Catholic Worker. I was pretty young. I was about 22. That was 20 years before he died. So we had a relationship over all those years that involved personal friendship at first. He was a big influence in my becoming a Catholic. And then I came to Orbis Books in 1987, and the last 10 years of my life we had a kind of professional relationship as well. I published a number of his books. I think that people connect with Henri because he shared himself so personally and didn't hold himself up as a great, know-it-all, but as a broken person himself with a lot of wounds and complex personality, and he showed such love of God and sense of presence of God in his life, and I think made the spiritual journey accessible to other people. They could identify with it because he was such an approachable person, and the way that he showed his struggle to grow closer to God through his own life, kind of stumbling, showed how to recognize that God's love is in our lives all the time, even at the times when we're unaware of it.
A lot of time we carry our own sufferings around, and we think we're the only ones who are going through this particular time in our lives. And when we read and we see that Henri Nouwen was somebody who suffered in the same way, and he even probably much more suffering than ourselves, we can identify with him, and we can see that he came out through the darkness and he became stronger, and I think he gives us a lot of hope, and it enriches our faith.
He often described the kind of great theme of his work, the insight that we are all beloved of God, and that has nothing to do with our accomplishments or how beautiful we are, how successful we are, and that is kind of good news that most of us never hear. I was very moved to see this film tonight. To begin by seeing a film made my job a little easier, that people could really hear his voice and get a sense of what his story was. I was seeing that film for the first time myself, and it really brought back a lot of memories of a person who played a very important role in my life.
Oh, and Father Henri Nouwen, of course, there, and it sort of brings to mind something we talked about earlier in the week with Matty Stepanek, someone who was so young in Matty Stepanek's case, and someone who lived a full life, of course, in Father Nouwen's case, was taken at the age of 64, which maybe isn't quite as long a life as you know, many would like, but you know, both people though who suffered. Matty, of course, suffered in a very physical way, having his rare form of muscular dystrophy that he suffered with for 14 years of his life, and Father Nouwen suffering in a more psychological way throughout his life. But both people who were able to make a huge difference in the lives of others. Matty, of course, spreading a message of peace and hope and the love of God to people all across the world. And really kind of the same there for Father Nouwen, and really helping people out and using their suffering and making something of that. Both of them really did that, and they can both serve as an inspiration to the rest of us, because as you heard Ed Wilkinson say there, a lot of times we'll suffer and we'll think, oh, well, I'm so alone, I'm the only person that's going through this, but maybe not. And if we can serve as an inspiration to others, it's all good. Well, that's it for this edition of Currents. Now remember, you can always watch us online at currentsny.net, and you can let us know what you think by sending us an email. The address there is drop us a line at currentsny.net. Get it like fishing? Drop us a line? Okay. Well, for all of us here at Currents, I'm Matt McClure. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great night.